Thousands of commercial aircrafts fly every day, both domestic and intercontinental. But sometimes things do not go as planned. The Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 is one of these. How did the Malaysia Airlines Flight, or MH370, just disappear? What happened to the crew and the passengers on board? Join us as we discuss the disappearance of the MH370. The date was the 8th of March 2014. It all seemed like a routine flight from Kuala Lumpur International Airport to Beijing. At 12:41 a.m., Flight 370 took off and reached a cruising altitude of 10,700 meters, or 35,000 feet, at a minute past 1 o'clock. The commercial jet was expected to land in Beijing at 6:30 a.m. It was already cruising over the ocean when something happened. The aircraft communication addressing and reporting system, which transmitted data about the aircraft's performance, sent its last transmission at 1:07 a.m., just 6 minutes after making it to the cruising altitude. That was when they realized it switched off. MH370 was now flying dark. The last voice communication from the crew occurred at 1:19 a.m. and at 1:21 a.m. the plane's transponder, which communicated with air traffic control, was switched off. All this happened just as the plane was about to enter Vietnamese airspace over the South China Sea. At 1:30 a.m., Malaysian military and civilian radar began tracking the plane as it turned around and then flew southwest over the Malay Peninsula and then northwest over the Strait of Malacca. About 52 minutes later, at 2:22 a.m., Malaysian military radar lost contact with the plane over the Andaman Sea. An Inmarsat satellite in geostationary orbit over the Indian Ocean received hourly signals from Flight 370. The last time the plane was detected by the satellite was at 8:11 a.m. That was how Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, a Boeing 777 with 227 passengers and 12 crew members, disappeared without a single trace. Are they safe? Did the plane plunge into the sea? All questions were inconclusive. So this led to an international search effort stretching from the Indian Ocean west of Australia to Central Asia. Initially, the search for the plane concentrated on the South China Sea. They later discovered that Flight 370 had turned to the west shortly after the transponder had switched off, so search efforts moved to the Strait of Malacca and the Andaman Sea. On March 15th, a week after the plane had disappeared, the Inmarsat contact was disclosed. Analysis of the signal could not locate the plane precisely, but did determine that the plane might have been anywhere on the two arcs, one stretching from Java southward into the Indian Ocean, southwest of Australia, and the other stretching northward across Asia from Vietnam to Turkmenistan. The search area was then expanded to the Indian Ocean southwest of Australia on the southern arc and Southeast Asia, Weather China, Western China, the Indian subcontinent and Central Asia on the northern arc. Where else could the plane possibly be? On March 24th, Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak announced that based on analysis and the final signals, Inmarsat and the UK Air Accidents Investigation Branch had concluded that the flight crashed in a remote part of the Indian Ocean 2,500 kilometers or 1,500 miles southwest of Australia. Unfortunately, it was extremely unlikely that anyone on board survived, so they searched for the flight recorder or black box now. The search for wreckage was hampered by the remote location of the crash site. On the 6th of April, about 2,000 kilometers or 1,200 miles northwest of Perth, Western Australia, an Australian ship detected several acoustic pings. Could these pings be from the flight recorder of the MH370? Further analysis of the Inmarsat data also found a partial signal from the plane at 8:19 a.m. consistent with the location of the acoustic pings, last of which were heard on April 8th. If the signals were from Flight 370, the flight recorder was likely at the end of its battery life. Further searches were conducted using a robotic submarine. They discovered that the pings had been spread over a wide area, but the submarine found no debris, and tests found that a faulty cable in the acoustic equipment could have produced the pings. It was not until over a year later that the first piece of debris was found. On the 29th of July 2015, the right-wing flaperon was discovered on a beach on the French island of Réunion, about 3,700 kilometers or 2,300 miles west of the Indian Ocean, when the area was being searched by Australian authorities. Over the next year and a half, 26 more pieces of debris were found in the shores of the African continent in Tanzania, Mozambique, South Africa, Madagascar, and even Mauritius. 3 of the 27 pieces were positively identified as coming from Flight 370, and 17 were still under speculation, although experts believe it is quite possible that they came from the plane. 2 pieces came from the cabin interior, suggesting that the plane had broken up. Did that happen in mid-air or on impact with the ocean? It's impossible to tell. Study of the rear-union wing flaperon and a piece of the right wing flap found in Tanzania showed that the plane had not been guided to a water landing. Some researchers note that Flight 370 could have struck the water vertically, and one of the results of one modeling study supports this theory. The study was conducted even before the flaperon's discovery and explains the dearth of physical evidence. The debris locations were used to narrow the search area in the Indian Ocean, since some possible crash sites would have been unlikely to produce debris that would have drifted to Africa. The events of that day are slowly coming together. The governments of Malaysia, Australia, and China called off the search for Flight 370 in January 2017. It's been nearly 3 years already. An American company, Ocean Infinity, received permission from the Malaysian government to continue searching. But in May 2017, the Malaysian Transport Ministry announced that it would call off that search. 18 months later, in July 2018, the Malaysian government issued a final report on Flight 370's disappearance. Since mechanical malfunction was deemed extremely unlikely, the government concluded that the change in flight path likely resulted from manual inputs. Still, the investigators could not determine why Flight 370 disappeared. Why did a perfectly functional Boeing 777 go radio silent, veer off its route and end up in bits and pieces? There were a lot of theories, but the loss of the ACARS and transponder signals spurred speculation about some form of hijacking. Still, no individual or group claimed responsibility. And why would hijackers have flown the plane into the ocean? After the discovery of the debris, some speculated that Flight 370 was shot down, but no evidence of shrapnel from the missile or other projectiles have been found. One thing that is clear is that the signals had been switched off from inside the aircraft, suggested suicide by one of the crew, but nothing suspicious was found in the behavior of the captain, the first officer, or the cabin crew prior to the flight. Malaysian authorities confirmed that the plane's tracking devices were switched off not just by any crew member, but in the cockpit. Officials believe the communication systems were deliberately disabled and the aircraft knowingly steered off course, but authorities also noted that the pilots had not specifically requested to be placed on the same flight. The remaining crew and passengers of the Malaysia Airlines Flight, which vanished on that fateful day, are also being investigated. The evidence points at Captain Zahari Ahmed Shah and his co-pilot Fariq Abdul Hamid, leaving a lot to be answered for. Mr. Zahari is a 53-year-old veteran pilot who joined Malaysia Airlines in 1981 and logged 18,000 hours of flying experience. Several reports indicate that his wife and children moved out of the family home the day before the flight after his wife told him she was leaving him. A fellow pilot and associate of Mr. Zahari told the New Zealand Herald that he had been terribly upset by his relationship troubles, and since the disappearance of the plane, Mr. Zahari's wife has not spoken publicly. His 26-year-old son Ahmed Said said to the New Straits Times that he had ignored all of the speculation, adding, "I know my father better." The Zahari family were among more than 100 people interviewed as part of the investigation into the backgrounds of all 239 people on board, but authorities said the interviews produced no, quote, information of significance, end of quote. The co-pilot Fariq Abdul Hamid joined Malaysia Airlines in 2007 at the tender age of 20, but only recently started co-piloting the Boeing 777. He is the son of a senior civil servant in Selangor State, and he studied aviation at a flight school in the Malaysian resort island of Langkawi. He had gained about 2,700 hours of flight experience before flying the MH370, but authorities have revealed that he was on his first flight aboard a Boeing 777 as a fully approved pilot. Malaysia Airlines said Mr. Hamid was only on his 6th flight in the cockpit of a 777, and flight MH370 was his first without a training pilot overseeing him. But aviation experts have dismissed the significance of this, saying his relative inexperience would not have been a risk, especially alongside an experienced pilot as Mr. Zahari. Alright, good night. These were the words of Mr. Hamid 12 minutes after the aircraft's first communication system was switched off and 2 minutes before the second and final transponder was shut down. Police have searched the homes of the men, who both live in the Shah Alam neighborhood in Malaysian capital Kuala Lumpur. Officials said they were analyzing the pilot's psychological profiles and looking into their family life and connections. At the time the jet went missing, the Australian Prime Minister Abbott said, "My understanding from the very top level of the Malaysian government is that from very early on here, they thought it was a murder-suicide by the pilot. Whatever secrets remain, they are definitely at the bottom of the deep blue sea." Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more amazing content. See you on the next one. Until then, bye.